I'm really honored to introduce to you today Britt Labonte Reviglio. She recently had an article published on Authority magazine called Five Tips for a Happy Loving Marriage. She is a licensed professional counselor with over a decade of experience in holistic healing, specializing in addiction, family dynamics, and trauma. As the Family Wellness Program Manager at Mountainside Treatment Center, Britt utilizes a variety of modalities to empower clients in building self-awareness, fostering emotional connections, and developing healthy communication styles. With a passion for facilitating personal growth and healing, Britt creates a supportive environment where individuals and families can thrive. Outside of her professional pursuits, she enjoys traveling and cherishing quality time with her family. Thank you for spending some time with me here today, Britt.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
So, what planted the seed of your interest in family therapy?
Ooh. Um, you know what? I think it has to do with me just being a very relational person. When I first got into the field, I was an individual clinician in addiction treatment as in residential, and I was always talking with the families. Our conversations were a lot of times about the dynamics of family work, the dynamics of their relationship, and I just felt this strong pull to it. And then there was an opportunity for me to become a family clinician, and I jumped on it and I haven't looked back. It's my favorite thing to do. I love working, especially with couples, like high conflict couples. That's like my favorite people to work with.
So many clinicians don't like couple work,
I know, I love it. Yeah.
and couple work is my specialty as well. I think you have to be called to it.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
You said, I'm quoting you, we are always growing and changing. How does that impact a marriage?
I think it makes actually a really big impact, especially if you're not aware that your partner and yourself will change, right? Like who you are today is not the same person you were 10 years ago, and you're not going to be the same person in 10 years, especially if you have children or if you have a job change or someone that you love has passed away. So it's really important to know that when you choose a life partner, you're going to be growing in life together. So I always recommend for people to really, like, especially when they're dating, to look for somebody who has shared values and character traits, because those things are usually what's going to sustain a person, and they're going to be pretty much the same throughout their lives. Their personalities might change a little bit, their interests, their hobbies, those things, environmental things can change, but a person's core beliefs are usually the same. And so yeah, I think it's really important to have that fluidity and letting your partner be a different person in different seasons and allowing them to allow to have your own growth as well.
So, how do you help a couple navigate the changes in a partner, for instance, where one person is changing in a direction that leaves the partner feeling kind of left out? How would you help them navigate that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Well, I think it's really important to have an honest conversation, right? A lot of times what I see is people just not saying how they feel, what they think, and wanting the other person to just know. And we're not mind readers. We can't do that. Even if we've been together for 20 years, it's still hard to do. And we can't just assume that our partner can tell that we're feeling disconnected or we're not liking the change or X, Y, and Z. And if they are picking up on the signs, they might be like processing them in a different way than you actually want them to be processing it. So I really recommend having an honest and truthful conversation, and in that conversation, conversation, I say this, if you talk to anybody that knows me, I am like notorious for saying, come curious. So many times we come to conversations with an agenda and we think we know what the other person is going to say, and we just have this all knowing, right? But that keeps us very closed minded, and it keeps opportunities for healing and growth kind of at the door, with the door closed. But if we come curious and we're like, hey, I'm just really curious about like how you're feeling about our relationship right now. Do you feel close to me? Do you feel like we're connected? And really just letting there be space for conversation. People are much more open when there's curiosity and not being accused.
I love that. I think curiosity is one of the most valuable tools that we can bring to any relationship.
100%.
Do you have any kind of framework or certain guidelines that you teach couples as they learn to communicate better with each other?
Yeah, I think the first one would be, slow it down, listen, right? Listen first. And also that curious nature of what is your partner's love language. And I feel like I'm such a buzzword saying that, it's so cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason. What I see happen is couples being like, well, I'm doing this for them and I'm doing that for them and they don't care and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, well, did they ask you to do that for them? No, they wanted me to do this. I'm like, okay, well, if they're telling you how they like to be loved and we're not well, I hate to say performing, but we're not executing in that way,
Right.
then we're gonna get those results of them not feeling loved. They're actually verbalizing their needs. So
Yes.
it's really listening and asking, like, how do you like to be loved? What
Yes.
would you like for me to do maybe differently or adjust a little bit so that you feel loved? Because there is a big disconnect when oftentimes we want to just love somebody how we love, but just
Yes.
because we love that way doesn't mean that's how that other person receives it.
One of my couples, her love language was physical touch, just gestures of affection. And he could go, a long time without. And he had a daughter, and I said, if your daughter told you she was hungry, what would you do? Well, I would get food for her. I would feed her. Well, your wife is starving for love,
Yeah,
and you're
right,
refusing to feed her. And
right.
I, suggested that he put a reminder on his phone,
Right.
to remind him to go nuzzle her neck or go come up behind and hug her. It made so much difference in their relationship.
It really changes everything, because if you can put that intention into loving your partner the right way, we feel respected, we feel heard, and more often than not, those little issues that you have will start to dissipate, or if
Yeah,
they come up, they won't be as intense because
yeah,
the other person feels loved, they feel cherished, and then it's kind of like with puppies, right? When you encourage the puppy to go outside and you give it a treat and you treat it really well, it's going to want to do it more. But if
yeah.
you tell the puppy, like, you're bad, you're not doing good enough, they're not going to want to listen to you. And it's the same. I hate to relate it to puppies, but it's the same for relationships, right? We need to feel encouraged, we need to feel supported, and we need to feel respected and loved. And when we have those things, we tend to give people the best of us.
My late husband, and I took the love language quiz, and for the first time, I found out that his love language was words of affirmation. And I
Mhm.
just thought, oh, shoot, I'm really bad at that. I'm bad at receiving compliments, I'm poor at giving them. But I loved him and I wanted him to feel loved. So I literally had to train myself, remind myself he had so many great qualities. It wasn't hard to find something to value or appreciate. It was just developing the habit of putting it into words.
Right.
The reward was the grin on his face,
Right.
when,
Right. Exactly.
when
Exactly.
he got what he needed.
Yeah.
You recommend that partners often remind each other, you recommend that partners should often remind each other we're a team. Whenever my late husband and I had to discuss something that might have a little heat to it, he would start the conversation by saying, I know we can get through this. We've done this before. And as soon as he said that, I would just breathe a sigh of relief. All the tension would go out of the conversation. It was so reassuring. I love that you're coaching your partners to remind themselves that we're a team.
Yeah. And I love that because what he also did, and I'm going to steal it and use it for my husband and I, because what he did was he reassured the testimony of your love story,
Yes.
right? He reassured that, hey, we've had hard moments and we've worked through them, and this is just another one of those things. So let's not take it that seriously and catastrophize it and trust ourselves and trust that we can move forward. I absolutely love that. And I think it's really important, especially with, the rising couples today, is that the majority of young people now, right, they're in their 30s and 40s, they're product of the generation of the increase of divorce.
Yes.
So there are so many people, young people getting married who also have some pretty ruptured childhoods
Yeah.
and default like thinking of fear of abandonment and fear of a ruptured family system. So having that reassurance of, hey, we're a team can help mitigate anybody who has like an anxious or avoidant attachment style and who wants to catastrophize and be like, oh my gosh, this is the fight that's going to destroy their relationship. This is just, I'm not good enough or they're not good enough, and just go into those spiral, negative thinking. And it brings people back to like, actually relationships in general are not easy.
Yeah.
And conflict, right? Conflict is human. Conflict is a constant thing. So you need to really, the quicker you get comfortable with healthy fighting, the better off your relationship will be in the long run.
You know, we read in Harville Hendricks' book the quote, conflict is the doorway to greater intimacy. And at
Mm,
the time, we just looked at each other and said, how can that be? But it's learning that you have the tools to get through a conflict that gives you greater intimacy. It took away all the fear of conflict.
yeah. Yeah, I think the more we can like um look at conflict as more as like a misunderstood friend, the better off we are, because I do believe that conflict brings deeper intimacy if done appropriately, right? When I say fighting, like it needs to be healthy. Like it can't go for, you can't disrespect your partner, can't insult your partner, you can't like use manipulative language, right? There are like healthy boundaries that create healthy conflict. So
Yes.
healthy conflict is needed, but toxic conflict, toxicity, not good.
I teach my couples that respect is like the third leg of a three-legged stool. You've got love, you've got commitment, but there has to be respect, or the love and
Yes.
commitment fade away.
Right. 100%.
Tell
And
us,
respect is really what's going to keep that commitment and keep that love.
yes, respect is kind of the glue that keeps those things working for you.
Yeah.
Tell us about the research behind a 6-second kiss.
Oh, yeah. So that is Gottman method. That is their latest research. I am a big advocate of anything that Dr. Gottman shares. His research is unprecedented. And when I heard that, it just came out like, I don't know, 6 months ago or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Time for me to try it. And I went and I told all my clinician friends and I started doing it myself. And I've had my clients do it. And I think what it does, like from firsthand experience and from listening to people who have done it after suggestion, is that it slows down the the relationship and
Yes.
it makes you more in the moment with your partner, which my like dorky neuroscience brain goes, oh yeah, that's gonna really have that reward circuitry go off in your brain and your nervous system of, oh, this feels safe, this feels nice, I feel good, and release those hormones and those chemicals that bond you deeper to your partner. I always tell people, I'm like, I'm not asking you to make out, though, if that's what you want to do, go do it, right? But just a slow 6 second kiss, and you can work your way up to it. Um, really captures that present moment of like, hey, I love you and I really enjoy you and I appreciate you and thanks.
Yes. I love it.
Mhm.
It's hard to overemphasize the importance of praising or appreciating each other. Tell us why.
You know, much like what I shared before of like my little puppy analogy, is that we all just want to be seen, loved, and valued. And we are much more likely to care for someone else when we feel that that care and that choice is being respected and appreciated. So if you're a person and you really like when your partner gets you coffee in the morning, but you don't say thank you, you don't you and your response is more like, well, why don't you get me coffee in the morning? Not Nobody's going to be motivated to be like, get you coffee. They're probably going to go, well, you got two legs, get yourself your own coffee,
Yeah.
right? But if you brought your partner coffee and they gave you the sweetest kiss every single time, and they like looked at you and held your face for a brief moment and said, thank you so much. I love when you do this for me. That's going to create like so many like endorphins in your body to be like, oh, that felt great. I feel so connected. I loved doing this. Let me do it again to get that same pleasure reward from doing that act of service. So the more we appreciate the good that our loved one is doing, the more one we're going to see, right? Because we're going to expand. What's that saying? Where attention goes, energy flows. So the more we see of the positive, the more like our perspective is going to be like, wow, this partner is great. And then that partner is going to be like, wow, I'm so appreciated. Let me do more things to feel more appreciated and more loved.
One of the most common complaints I hear from a new couple is one or the other or both of them don't feel appreciated. They're not being acknowledged for whatever contributions they are making to the partnership.
Mhm.
Before you married, you got some great advice from a friend who had been married for 35 years.
Yeah.
Pick one or two things you were told and tell us about it.
I think the first thing that I would like to mention was their first date. They were like 19 years old, 18, 19 years old, the both of them. And they went walking around the mall and talked for hours. And they both just shared exactly what they were looking for in a long-term partnership. They were both, even though very young, very marriage minded. And they shared like what they expected of their partner, what they expected of themselves, gender roles, what they wanted for a family, and they spent a lot of time on what's important and discussing about what's important before they just invested all of their emotion and physical intimacy in with each other. And I thought that was so just profound. And maybe you don't get that opportunity to have that conversation on the first date, but I thought it was so profound that they were both so intentional from the beginning and so clear on who they are and what they wanted, that it allowed them to see each other clearly and realize that that's something that they could build moving forward, and that they were aligned on what they wanted. So,
I,
yeah.
I just love that. Let's just be open and honest about expectations
Right,
right at
right.
the beginning.
Right. And and I've known her for about, I don't know, nearly 12 years now. So I've seen the marriage, I've seen ups and downs, and I think that would be my second point is um she said this one thing about heartbreak. I can't say it verbatim, but she mentioned that even in long-term marriage, you'll still know heartbreak. And I thought that was really profound because so many people are like, oh, you didn't meet this need, so now I'm gonna go jump ship and find someone else, and you didn't do this, da 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 da. And I think it gave such a clearer understanding for me and preparation for me that life is long, life is full of ups and downs and hardships. And just because you go through a rocky moment with a partner doesn't mean that they're the wrong partner. It's just an obstacle that you have to work through together. And in that same, conversation, she shared with me that you really need to always have respect, as we said, love, and most importantly, grace. She stressed a lot about needing to have grace and forgiveness for your partner. And she didn't mean it in a way where you just forgive them and you let them just walk all over you and you don't heal. But she just meant in that like human understanding that they aren't perfect and you aren't perfect. And you kind of have to cover them with grace and ask for them to cover you with grace as well.
There are times when we all need forgiveness.
Yeah.
None of us are perfect.
Yeah, I heard this quote about a month or two ago, and I was just like, wow, that's so great. And it was, isn't it interesting that we judge ourselves by our intentions, but judge others by their actions?
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
So tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you if they choose to.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram, the spiritual therapists of IG. They can always reach out to me, follow me if they'd like. And that's about it. I live a pretty private life, but I like to share on Instagram. I like to connect. I also have a TikTok, but I'm not on it that much. But Boho Brit, if they want to follow it and connect on there too.
Okay, thank you, Brett, so much for the time you've shared with me this morning. I admire your work. Wish
Oh,
you the
thank
very best.
you. Thank
And
you
if
so much, Nancy.
listeners want to, you can go to Authority Magazine and read the full article, which is full of a lot more tips.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.